Hi, welcome to the Take 5 podcast, the show that helps strengthen firefighters in protecting those relationships that matter most. I'm your host, Lee Sullivan, licensed mental health counselor and certified emotionally focused therapist. I'm so glad you're here today. Hi. Today I'd like to talk about the myth within fire service that emotions are irrational and therefore should not be trusted. When people are talking about irrational emotions, what they're actually describing are reactionary emotions, big reactions, protective strategies, or protective responses. These are labeled as secondary emotions. Our secondary emotions actually hide our deeper feelings. Some examples of our secondary emotions are anger, frustration, defensiveness, guilt. Numbness is a common secondary emotion within fire service and first responders. Secondary emotions are reactions to our primary emotions. Our primary emotions are underneath our secondary emotion. And I think of this in terms of we feel our primary emotion while we show our secondary emotion. Our primary emotions are vulnerable, they're softer, and they're universally experienced by all of us. Some examples of primary emotions are anger, fear, sadness, loneliness, and shame. They're more hidden, and it takes time to identify them. It's really difficult to identify them in the heat of the moment, especially when everything is at stake. It takes courage to express them. When we do, however, we discover they give great clues and great indicators of what is most important to us. So I listed anger as both a primary and a secondary emotion. And this is true. The distinguishing difference is how we use our anger. So when we use anger to attack or to hurt the other person, we're actually using it to destroy connection, okay, to create disconnection from them. And that is using anger in terms of a secondary emotion. When we use anger to explain or describe this feeling of injustice or this sense of being wronged, we're actually inviting connection. And this is using anger as a primary emotion. So I'm going to invite you to think of a time recently when you got really upset and when secondary emotions just sort of took over. Replay it a few times in your head. Allow yourself to return to those feelings just for a moment. How did you react? How did you respond to the other person? Were you able to resolve the conflict? What did you say in return to them? Did you pull away? Did you shut down or maybe hide from them? Did you find yourself boiling on the inside and maybe even attack harder? Did you get quiet and turn inward? Or did you crack a few jokes to lighten the mood? When our primary emotions are tinged or tainted with our secondary emotions, when we deliver our primary emotion within a secondary emotion of maybe anger or frustration, then our primary emotion gets drowned out. And the listener feels blamed and put down. And then it is impossible for them to show empathy toward us. They actually are not able to hear our deeper emotion. Okay, this is easier to conceptualize when you're on a scene. So when a patient, for example, is using big escalated secondary emotional reactions, it can be hard to find them. It can be hard to connect with them. When you have a patient who's using softer, vulnerable emotions, it is easy for you to express empathy for them. You might even invite a chaplain on scene to help support them. You just want to provide the best patient care that you can offer. So whether we're talking about a patient, we're talking about a fellow crew member, or we're talking about a loved one at home, it's really important for us to identify what actions we take when we are reacting out of our secondary emotions. We want to know and identify what we are doing to push others away and causing ourselves to not be able to be heard or understood by others. I hope this helps to dispel the myth that emotions are irrational and therefore do not trust emotions. Maybe we can shift stigma a little bit today within fire service. Thank you so much for listening. Please visit my website, elpascounseling.com, for a list of references used in today's episode. Remember, what we see, we can change, one feeling, one message, one conversation at a time. Thank you for joining me as we learn to tap into our emotion signals to protect and preserve those relationships that matter most. Be safe and be well.